Hello everyone, welcome back to Coffee with Ania. Today we have fantastic guest, it's Agnieszka Pędrak. First of all, I would like to say thank you to our sponsors. This is the King's Mill Restaurant, B&K Car Service and Turbo Service. If you have any problem with your car, you can go through to those places, or if you want to just try the Italian kitchen, the King's Mill, this is your place. Hello, Aga, again.
Hello.
Just maybe the few words about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a PhD student currently at Trinity College Dublin, and I'm interested in bilingualism, particularly looking at the childhood bilingualism and how children manage to learn two languages and how does that support the identity negotiation process. So that basically means that I'm looking at the bilingual children and what do they think about themselves in terms of who am I and what is my background, for example, and am I Polish or Irish or
Fantastic.
things like this.
Before we go for bilingualism, hard word.
Yeah.
First of all, if it's English is not your first language, like for me. But tell me, where are you from?
I'm from Poland, as you can probably hear from distance, and I came here like about 7 years ago almost, and my first reason to come here was because my parents were already here in Ireland, so I just wanted to join, but also I did my master's in bilingualism as well, and I did some research in the UK and in Ireland, and I just wanted to continue, so that would be the second. And the third reason was that I was pregnant at the time, and I really wanted my child to grow up bilingual.
Fantastic. This your child speaking how many language?
2, and she's learning Irish, so that'd be English, Polish at home, and she's learning Irish, and she's trying to teach me as well because I got no idea. So,
I understand.
So she's trying to be a teacher for me in Irish. Yeah.
Yeah. Your partner is Polish as well.
He's Irish.
He's Irish. Oh, very good. And from that one stage, you can maybe explain how it's important if you are from the different countries and you have a children to keep your own language.
Mm-hmm. I would say there are plenty of reasons to maintain your own language. The first reason, looking from the parental perspective, is that we basically express ourselves better probably in our mother tongues, and that would mean that we faster and maybe more precise in talking about our emotions, for example, in our first language. So I would say that's good for us parents to show it to children, how you express your emotions, how you actually talk about emotions, and also how it probably helps to maintain like a better relationship between a parent and a child. But also if children have the heritage language, it's the language that we called it's their parents' language, that will also help them to maintain their relationship with their extended family abroad, so they can talk to their grandparents and cousins, etc. And the last thing I would say, but that's probably, in my opinion, as this is the focus of my study, the core thing, the most important part is that language is not only a mean of communication, but it's also a part of who we are. So once we speak the languages that are our heritage languages in the house, then we show that they are important, that where we come from or where your parents come from, this is important. This is also part of myself. So the language is not only something we use to communicate, but this is a part of us and a part of who I am and a part of my background that I will take with me through my entire life. So the better they can understand that in the early years, probably that'll be easier for them to not drop that language later on and to be actually proud of their skills. And I wouldn't say it really matters what level of their proficiency would be in that language. It really matters that they would be proud from themselves, that they know this language, that this is part of their heritage, etc. So it's not only the communication purposes, I would say, that matter here.
But how you can suggest for the mothers just like you, if they have partner speak for a completely different language and you have a child, do you keep your language and talk only in your own, or how do you think it's the best way?
I would say, every situation is different and every child is different. And there are many factors upon which they would decide to speak or not to speak Polish, or to use it back, or just to reply in English. And it doesn't have to be connected always with their skills. It might be the case of their confidence, whether they think they're good in that language, or whether they associate that language with something positive. So I would rather say any positive response. So even if they would respond in English, maybe at some point, if we encourage them and if we stay positive, they will decide, okay, I'm gonna try, especially when they hear the question from us and there will be some key words, so they will get the words from just us speaking. So it's not like they have no vocabulary, it's just a matter whether then and when they decide that they want to use it as well. But it's not always that simple, I would say, especially when you have two languages in the house, because we previously had only Polish in the house. So that was obvious for my daughter from earlier years that I would only speak Polish to her. And even when her friends came, she expected me to speak Polish. So if I said something in English, like, girls, would you like some juice? Then she'd be like, why do you say English to me? Why do you speak English? But then I'd be like, because I wanted others to understand as well. And she's like, okay. But now we more tend to mix the languages, I would say, because it depends on the situation, and what you're talking about. So whether you would like to include the other person so they can understand, or maybe it's not that important that they need to know.
Or you have a secret language.
Yes, sometimes
Yes.
that's actually funny, because sometimes she would come to me and she would say things, in Polish just to me, but then she would say Adam and then in Polish, and he knows it's something about him, So yeah, it's very funny. But also the funny thing is, like, when he doesn't understand what I just said, and then he says the same, like, that would be like some small things, like, I don't know, remember to put your jacket when you go outside, right? And I just said the same like 2 seconds ago, and he wouldn't know. So she's always like, why do you always copy one another, And we say, because it's important message, so we want you to know that message in both languages, and just remember, But the thing is, he doesn't always get what we say. Sometimes he already understands, like, from the context. So I'd say as much as you can use the language, because the other person will also understand with time much more than at the beginning. They will learn vocabulary, or they will just understand from, the situation, what you might be talking about. So if that's possible, don't drop the language and just continue using that language until it becomes a habit, I would say, because I know there are different approaches to that, and there's some studies that would recommend that one parent uses only one language, the other parent uses the other language, so the child can easily recognize the difference between the languages and also only use the proper language with one parent and the other one with the other parent. But I would say it's not always that easy, not always that possible, especially when you have other people coming in the house, etc. So I would just go with, like, assess the situation, whether everybody needs to understand or not. Because if I'm asking my daughter, would you like something to drink? It's not like a huge question that everybody needs to know. So I simply use Polish to her as much as I can. But sometimes when we talk, like, about her day at school, and I would like Adam to listen and to understand as well what she's talking about, then I would ask her to, like, maybe say that in Polish so he can understand what happened as well. So it really depends on, like, everyday situations, but I would really recommend just whenever you can, keep the language, because it's very easy to lose it. It's very easy to go the way that you constantly use English more often and more often and more often, and then Polish is just left behind, and that also has some impact on the language skills in child and on their confidence. So when the heritage language is, like, kind of not really use much, then they not develop the skills very quickly, and they may feel like it's just easier for them at some point
Yes.
then to say that
Yes.
in English. And this is also another factor that would encourage them to use English rather than Polish. So that's why I would say, if you can, just use Polish. It's not like anybody will be feeling uncomfortable with that, especially that in the house you probably talk about that. And I would always explain, like, to friends or neighbors, that we speak Polish at home. So I've never got anybody giving me like any bad feedback of that, like, I wouldn't be comfortable when you speak Polish. Like, obviously, we're not planning anything bad.
Yes.
And so, usually people would be like, oh, that's great. And they start to be interested in that. Like, oh, how you do that? It's actually a good idea that you maintain the language. And I think it's also important here in Ireland because there's also Irish. So as long as we want to keep heritage languages like the immigrant languages in the house, this is also a good example for Irish families and Irish-speaking, communities to also keep Irish in the house. So I think it's not only the matter of the immigrant languages here, and that's why I think people are really understanding when it comes to speaking other language.
What kind of benefits we can get if we learn different languages?
So that's a huge list.
Because I think so. Sometimes we have the situation when people they came wherever, they came to Ireland. Yeah, like example, we can just say like the Polish couple came into Ireland and they stop actually using much their own language, and they are sent children to school. Children starting school in English, and they say like, okay, I don't push my child to learn more Polish because this is too hard. Do you think it's too hard? Or it's not a problem?
Yeah, I would recommend learning languages, but also to assess whether it's hard or easy. It really depends on the situation, because not everybody is given the same amount of time and the same amount of learning content, So it's always about the richness of the lessons that you get, and the lesson might be anything. It might be like a small talk with someone in that language, so it doesn't need to be like a proper lesson with a teacher, but just any situation that helps you use that language and develop your skills. And it's not always about reading or writing, it's also about your confidence in speaking. So I would say sometimes it might be hard for children even to learn English. It depends, because some children were born here and they start crash here at the same time like Irish children, so they would develop their English very early, right? Some children came here after spending few years in Poland or somewhere else abroad. We got a huge Romanian community growing at the moment in Ireland as well. So it's not that easy to say for whom it would be easy, but it's definitely easier for children to learn another language than for an adult, just because they can strictly focus on learning and school, and they have all the tools needed and they have all the people needed. So if you imagine everybody who speaks the language to you is actually your teacher, your mom, your dad, your friend, your grandma on the phone, then you see how much of the content they got from every other source around. So that's how they can develop the languages and the skills very easily, because it's not like sitting with the book that they may consider, oh, that's boring and time consuming. And this is how we learn languages when we adults, unfortunately, because we can't afford dropping the job and just talk to people, go for a coffee, go to the cinema, talk to people,
But it's the best way, actually.
And that's the best way. So that's why we may sometimes think it's easier for children, but it's about the way they get into languages from and all the people, So everything is just perfectly designed for them and for their age and for their skills. So that's why it's easier for them. And they also curious, I would say, and very often they wouldn't give up that easily as we do. So it is an investment when you learn another language, It doesn't matter what language that is, because a language to me is like another word. So whenever you start to learn another language, it's like you open the door and you just enter a completely different world, with a different culture and different customs and different food and different ways of like expressing yourself. And this is something that is like very tricky sometimes, because
and different like understanding, even
Yes.
if you just know the language and you will read books in original language, it's completely
Yes.
different way if you have like a translated everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The process of translation is also like kind of a process of creation, something new, but based on the original book. So it gives us like a completely different impression when you're a reader, for example. And I think I was thinking of one example when I was driving up here. Like it's this kind of investment like you do when you signed up for a gym classes, so that'd be close to you. Some people would say like, if I go like 3 times per week for like 3 months, I'd be grand. I shape my body before the summer, right? But it actually doesn't look like this. It takes you years to get into that, and you don't see the benefits straight away, and you don't see your progress after one class, right? So it's the same with languages. It takes a lot of time, but then it stays you for a long time as well. So I think it's always worth it.
The kids have a much easy way, yeah. And I think this is the best. Like if we can teach them the different languages from they are actually born and they are small, but it's easy to learn when you are adult, or will be very difficult.
Well, that would depend
From your
also,
point of view, because I know like I'm
on
here
what you do.
17 years and I'm still learning and learning every
Yeah.
day, and I'm still can find it some words which one I can't say. Like we have bilingualism. Yes, this is very hard like for me.
Yeah.
But can you say like it's never too late?
Definitely. Also, like, sometimes we worry too much about things that are not necessarily important. So we would worry about, oh, my accent is not proper,
Yes.
And that's something that I would see many people would be worried about. Like, I can't pronounce this word properly, So many times I would say something to my partner and I couldn't say like basic words, Like the funniest thing is he's going to laugh so much on that, but he was going to like fast food. Okay, sorry, Ania. And like I'm trying to be fit, but on the weekends.
We
right?
all try.
Yeah. And then he'd be like, "Would you like something, Aga?" And I'm like, "Yeah, please get me a burger." And then he's like, "Burger," and I'm like, "Burger." He's like, "There's no R." I'm like, "Burger." Trying 3 times, then I'm like, I can't say it. So now we have a joke, because I just imagine like I go downstairs and I say like, "Can I have," like with the voice of mine, "Can I have a chicken burger?" So, sometimes we worry about such things, but it's not really important.
Confidence.
The confidence
is important.
is important, but not the way like you pronounce things, because everybody's making mistakes. Everybody does. The most important thing is that you actually use the language so you can learn more and you get like more fluent in that. So it gets to you easier how to say this or that, because it would happen to me at the beginning when I came here. Even though I did my bachelor's in English in Poland, that was like a completely different English that they taught me over there. And I came over here and I was like, oh, geez, I don't understand what people say to me like in the shop downstairs in Kildare.
But I tell you the secret, the Irish people doesn't understand each other.
Oh, yeah, I
sometimes,
know. And that's why my dad told me back then, because I was like, I'm not gonna speak with everyone, like I'm just gonna be like, yeah, smile. And
They are good with
yeah.
that, believe me.
But at some point I was like, yeah, I hear people, not really getting what the other person said, and they'd be like, ha, so I'm like, why do I worry about that, And also the thing, like, you don't really have to be ashamed of anything. The fact that you know more languages, it doesn't matter what proficiency level you have, like the fact that you know them, that you put some effort and time, you got yourself into learning that languages, everybody will be like praising you for that instead of criticizing you, especially here in Ireland. Like, I've never heard anybody saying to me, like, you know what, I'm not gonna talk to you because this Polish accent is so hard on my ears, you know, like nobody ever would tell you that. So I'd say, like, if we stay like consistent and really learn the languages and also put ourselves like into the life situations to use the languages, that's the best way even for an adult. So it's never too late to even enjoy it, you know. It's like whenever you watch TV or like listen to the radio, there's always something that you would catch, you know. With time you catch stuff in songs even that like, oh, I didn't know, you know, they say it this way, or that like, that wasn't correct, because they would
that was
sing
rude.
like
I didn't know that
she
before.
do instead of she does. So sometimes, you know, you get like even more like, you know, listening, the listening skills, and you listen in detail, and you like kind of process everything. But I think that's the joy that comes with it. So you don't have to be perfect. You just should enjoy yourself and should be proud of yourself and should like, you know, have some fun using the language and being curious about how you can say it differently. Because I know that when I came here, I would get the vocabulary and probably some grammar, but my ways of thinking would be strictly Polish. So I would use English, but the way I would use Polish. So I would just replace the words, you know, and the grammar. But it's completely different. That's something that I've learned over those years, that all those language behaviors even, you know, the responses you give, they're so much different in every language, in every culture. And this is actually sometimes funny when it comes to some, you know, little misunderstandings and stuff like this. So I'd say, like, there's no point to be afraid, and there's no point to put yourself under too much pressure, like, I have to be perfect, otherwise I'm not going out there and I'm not speaking with the people. I'm just gonna stick with my books or YouTube, you know, but I'm not gonna speak with real people, because this is the fear we have sometimes as adults, I would say, but it's only in our heads. So if you actually get yourself out and talk to people, you get better and better and better, and you see that it's not that scary, it's actually enjoyable, you know. So I would recommend it to a person at any age to start a new language. I actually have a few more languages that I would like to learn before I die, so
Which
that's
one?
on my list. I used to learn French when I was in secondary school. So I would like to go back to French. I used to learn German for a long time when I was in primary school. And then I studied in Germany for like 6 months. So I would go to German course over there, but actually all my subjects were in English, so I didn't put that much attention. So I would like to go back to that as well. And I think like the more languages you know, the more connection you see between them. So you grab the things that are similar, so it's easier for you. But also you learn something that is completely different. And it's also easier for you then, because you get, you know, some comparisons. So I'd say the more you learn the languages, the easier it is for your mind, for your brain to actually process that that amount of knowledge, you know.
Are you doing any workshops?
In Polish or like
Like in Polish or in English, like to explain to people about your work, about like bilingualism? Yes?
At the moment, I focus mainly on my studies, but I used to like at the Polish school, I used to give like talks for parents. I even did I think that was October or November, that we did in the Polish school by the Embassy of Poland in Dublin. So we had like, that's actually nice because it was like an interview, and we had parents as well. So they would also like add some questions, etc. And I'd say that was a lovely meeting, but still, like, we need more and more and more.
Exactly.
So I've organized such things in other Polish schools in the past, like here in Kilkenny and in Carlo as well.
Anything online? Like if someone just watch us at the moment and they say, oh, wow, I just want to talk with that girl because I didn't know that.
To be honest, I had some idea because I had a blog years ago, you know, about bilingualism. And I started the studies, etc. Okay, these are the excuses I tell myself, but like I dropped this. But I think instead of writing now, I was thinking maybe of like trying some lives, with some people who are just everyday people. So I wouldn't like invite a professor. I would rather invite a mom to tell me like what you struggle with, when it comes to languages in your house. So just to have like a very informal conversation, but maybe drop some ideas and inspire someone. So yeah, I will definitely think about that, and maybe that's also a way to go. Cause like the things I was doing that be organized, like the talks for parents, that would be organized like once per year for the Polish Bilingual Day in October, and it's definitely not enough, There is also the Mother Tongues organization, and they organize a lot of events, talks.
Mother tongue, yeah?
Yes, Mother Tongues.
How we can find that organization?
Oh, you can find them everywhere, like on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and the website is mothertongues.ie. And they organize in English a lot of like talks to parents, but also sessions in different languages. And just recently, on the 26th of February, there was like Mother Tongues Festival, and there would be workshops in so many different languages, and like combined with art and music and dance and literacy and numeracy skills development and stuff like this for all ages. So like,
and you
for
are still
adults.
with that organization, yes? Like
At the moment, I'm not like working like in the first line and organizing anything in person, but I do support everything they do, and I'm part of the board of management. So
Great.
I would really recommend to anyone, because even if you wouldn't find your language on the list, you can always reach out to them, and they can even connect you with another family. So you get someone to talk to, somebody who's from your country maybe, or who has children of similar age. Those things that really matter in everyday life, because I think it's those little steps that gives us support every day. Because for some people, like I'd say to me was easy because I have my parents here, and also there are many Polish people over here. So even going to the playground, there was a great chance that I would see another Polish man, and we can talk, and our children can play in Polish. But it's not that easy for all the languages. So I would just say, like, try to reach out to mother tongues and other people who are into language education and heritage languages here in Ireland, because they will always help you with all your struggles. So
that's very interesting. Yeah, you can enjoy a coffee with Ania. And I just want to say, like, if you want to read actually more or just listen more about the mother tongue, just follow mother tongue site. Yeah, we can find it on Facebook
or on Instagram.
Yeah, okay. But first of all, don't forget about the Studio 10 going through to YouTube. Subscribe, and you can always watch and listen Coffee with Ania. Yes. Tell me more maybe about your family. You have just one child, yes?
Yes, so far one. And we have a dog as well. So the dog is obviously bilingual as well.
Of course.
I think the first thing he really got, and probably he would think that was his name, was Chodź. So Chodź means come here, So
I
we
have
would
one
like
Irish friend.
call him,
Which
and
one?
we were like Chodź, and he looks at you, So now he knows Chodź and Siad, apart from his name, which is in English. But in my family, I think it's not only the matter of the languages that we speak, and we have a lot of fun with that. We have a lot of fun, like Alice would teach Adam some funny words because she's only 6, so she's having fun with the words that 6-year-old would laugh about, So she's teaching him that. Then, we also talk about like languages in general, I would say. So she has her best friends who come from Moldova. So sometimes when she goes over there, they play in their house, and she would hear that they speak Moldovan in their house, so she could hear the parents and her friends. And then one day we were like in a queue on the street, I think in front of some coffee shop, and there was a lady behind talking over phone, and Alice would get to me like, I think she's speaking Moldovan. And she wouldn't say what she's talking about, but she was able to recognize the language. So we talk a lot about like languages in general, that there are different languages in different countries. You know, if you go there, they speak this language or that language. It's not only us that speak different language in the house,
And
you
like
know?
you say, there are more doors. It's open because when you
Yes.
grow up, you will be able to travel
Yeah.
around the world. You can study anywhere you want.
Yes, obviously. And there's also like many benefits for the brain. Because if you think of a language, like if you think as a human being, we develop like, oh, it takes us some time, you know? But if you look at our body, we're able to walk, to run, but we're not yet able to speak at the same time because it's so complicated, right? To get the language. So it takes us years to learn a language. So it shows like how complex that is for our brain, but it's not too difficult because there are so many people who speak so many different languages. So if you think of it must be so beneficial, why it's so difficult. Usually when you get difficult things, you got like a great benefits at the end, right? So the more effort and time you put into that, the more you get back. So I would say there's also a lot of benefits that we might not even think of like on everyday life, because usually we think of like language is for communication, right? So that would be also something when I speak with my pupils in Polish school, and I would ask like, what are languages for? And they would say like communication, traveling. You know, sometimes people they would think like, okay, I think in a language as well. So,
That's good.
so it's like a software in your brain.
Yes.
And then the benefits we get, it's also like we can focus better. So the person who knows more languages, who's bilingual, for example. So there would be studies who that prove that we can focus better. We have like better attention to detail, or we have this. I think it's like a selective attention that, you know, in a noisy room, for example, you can pick up only those things that matter, or from like a text, let's say, you know, it's not always connected to language, the skills that we develop learning a language that we can use in everyday life. And also when we think of like getting older, being bilingual also prevent dementia and Alzheimer. So, you know, you might be thinking, oh, you know, that's not for me. I'm not 60 yet. But the thing is,
The time is fly.
that only shows how great it is for our brain. If that can stop something that we can't cure with any medicine, or just delay it significantly, that only shows that it actually works for our brains. You know, it's like a great exercise for your brain. So we're very much into exercise for our bodies. And I really wish we would also take care of our brains and like read more books, learn the languages, and just enjoy it. Because I know for some people, it sounds like, oh, another language, you know, it's so difficult and it takes time. But like, just pick something that you like. If you're into cooking, then start with the cooking, you know, learn some vocabulary about cooking. Try to cook something. Like, watch something on YouTube that is in that language about cooking and see whether you can follow, whether you can understand, you know. So like with my daughter, for example, a friend brought her from Moldova a little gift, and we were looking at the box and trying to read that and figuring out whether some of these words would be similar to something in English or in Irish, or maybe they're not. So, you know, I'm trying to encourage my daughter to not only see benefits of speaking Polish or English or Irish, so she wouldn't be only happy about particular language, but I'm trying to make her like curious and interested in languages per se. So just, it's called like raising awareness, right? If we talk like more formally, but it's all about like being interested in languages. Oh, so they speak this language or that language, and this is the same actually.
Sometimes the people, they are surprised you are understanding what they are saying. But tell me, it is something like you can maybe easy learn the languages, like from example, like some people, like my husband, he is fluent in Russian language, Serbian language, but he's here as well, like 17 years in Ireland, and he still have a problem with English.
Oh yeah, it happens because it always depends on the language that is your mother tongue that you start with, right? So, for example, for Polish people, it would be easier to learn Czech, Slovakian, Russian, right? Because these are the languages that are close to Polish. So we would see a lot of similarities. Whereas English, it's not so similar, you know. So it might cause some challenge or some trouble, even, I would say. So and also it goes the other way, you know. Some people say like, oh, Polish is so difficult to learn, but it wouldn't be difficult to learn, for example, for a person who's from Czech Republic, right? Because their language is similar and it's like from the same language family that Polish. So it always depends on the language that you start with, and it would be easier to learn a language that is similar to your own mother tongue.
That's interesting as well. Some people, they have a situation like this. They can read everything, they can write everything, but they still can't talk in that language. They speak.
Yeah, usually what comes easier to us is to learn how to use like a written language for some people, for many people, right? Because we learn from the books. A lot of us still go this way, that we would learn from a course book, right? So what we do is like we do some reading, we see the vocabulary, we see those words, we do some writing. And when it comes to actually speak up, we feel like, you know, frightened, because we would say like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know how to say it. So it depends on a person. For some people would be the opposite, and they would be fine talking, but they would find it hard to read something, you know, and to focus on the reading text. I'd say it also, like, as always, depends on the way you learn in the language, and that would influence the skills that you develop faster. But there are ways about it as well, and very often it would be something still in our head that we think, I'm not able to speak that language. I can understand, I can watch the movies, but I'm not able to speak. So if you understand a spoken language, that probably means that you have the skills to use it as well, you know, to speak, but you would be somehow like, you know, hesitating because you're not confident enough, you know. So that's not always connected to the language skills, and that's a thing that would appear both in adults and in children, you know, in every language. That I would see children sometimes, when you ask them like a very simple question and directly, like, do you think you're good in English? Do you think you're good in Polish, you know? And I would say I had plenty of different levels of Polish in my classroom. And sometimes a pupil that I would consider excellent or very good, they would say, I don't know, I think I'm good enough, but still I could read faster, for example. And then you start thinking, like, in my opinion, you're doing great. So it's either they not being confident, or it might be also something that they've heard from someone else, you know. So that's why I think whenever you're learning something, and it's not only the language, it's like whatever you're starting to do with your life and something new, then it's not always good to listen to like everybody around that would put more pressure on you and criticize you over little things that might not be important. So that's also a thing that I always say to parents, like, try to be positive, because the fact that they trying, they learning, they, you know,
it's the most important.
That's the motivation. And if we crush the motivation, there's nothing.
Everything is done. Exactly. That's very interesting. I can listen you, I think so, for another hour. I'm not sure if we have enough time, but next time, if we go for coffee, we will go to the King's Mill, because they have that delicious coffee.
Oh, sometimes.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Arkim, to Kilkenny, to our Studio 10. And we want to say thank you as well to our sponsors, because without the sponsors, we can't make it, that show. We have to mention like the King's Mill restaurant, B&K car service, and Turbo service. Hope you will stay with us for another show. Bye.
Thank you very much.